Number 25. A few years ago in 2011, I was home on break from college. I decided to go to a shop to pick up some new jeans before that the new semester started. As I was coming out of the dressing room, I stopped for a moment to text my friend about our plans for that night. As I was standing there, I began to pick up on a conversation that was happening around the corner between a man and a young boy. I wasn't paying attention enough to hear what was said before, but I remember him saying this: "Just across the street. We'll be back before your daddy ever notices. I promise." I froze in my spot immediately when I heard that. I thought about calling someone, but the realization that this could be something bad happening right now, and if it's just a misunderstanding, I'll cause a lot of embarrassment to call the police. I gathered myself up and walked out to see a man walking away with a boy toward the entrance of the store. He seemed to be in his late 40s/early 50s. He was pretty well dressed and clean, with some scruff. I power walked to catch up with them and then asked the man, "Excuse me, is this your son?" He replied, "Oh yeah, this is my nephew actually." I had a rush of relief come over me, but I still just wanted to make sure, so I said to the boy, "Is that your uncle?" He replied, "No." He said we... Before he finished, the man turned and briskly started walking out the store at a pace almost impressive for a walk. I started thinking, oh my god, and didn't really know what to do, but there was no one else around to see what was happening, and I'm just left there confused with the little boy, so I figured I should try and help him find his dad. I've never been in a situation like that before this, and I'm not the best with kids, but I tried to be positive and non-freaked out as I asked him where his dad might be. We walked back to the dressing room and it was empty, so I figured he had left to look for his son. We walked around the store for a little bit as we were. He asked me who the man was. I said, "I'm not sure. I think he just wanted someone to hang out with." He didn't seem fazed for the most part by the situation. That's the part that scares me a lot. He didn't even realise what was going on. After a few minutes, I heard a voice behind me yell the boy's name. I turned round and asked him, "Is that your dad?" And he replied with yes. The father walked over to us with a "What the fuck are you doing" face to me and grabbed the boy's arm and attempted to bring him to his side. He asked me, "Who are you?" and asked if I could talk to him for a moment, and gestured to walk away from the boy so he wouldn't hear. I explained the situation to him and gave a description of the man. He turned to his son and asked him if another man tried to bring him somewhere, and the boy responded with, "Yeah, the guy was gonna get us some ice cream." There was an ice cream place right across the freeway. He developed a strong look of frustration and anger on his face, but simply thanked me and I went on my way. I didn't see any police cars or security show up by that time I left, so I'm not sure if I should have stayed in case he called them, but I was pretty shaken up by the incident and couldn't wait to get home. I still remember a small blurb in the newspaper about the attempted abduction along with a description of the guy, but I still don't know if anything came of it. I still can't believe that this kind of thing still happens to this day, and as unheroic as I am, I still managed to be in the right place at the right time to stop it. But the thing I don't like most of all about this is that guy, as far as I'm aware, he's still out there somewhere. Number 24. The following story is verified. I lived in a good neighbourhood in a good city. It was being built when we moved there, but I always remembered these two being my neighbours. Their names was Betty and Jeff. My first interaction which I remembered having with either of them was when that Betty gave my sister and I a whole bunch of McDonald's toys. You know how they display every one of them with the toys inside? We got one of those displays as well. I was 5 and my sister was 2, and I remembered being ecstatic as any younger child like me would have been. My mum later informed me that Betty would tell her that we were the cutest kids in the world and she wished that she had children like us. Flash forward a few years later, where I'm guessing I was about 7 or 8. I was hanging out with another girl my age and who was also from the neighbourhood down the street. We left my house and we were talking and walking to hers. When we got outside, we saw Betty throwing a bunch of Jeff shit outside from the second story window. I vividly remember her screaming profanities as she tossed an old TV set out of the window, and smelling his cologne that she must have thrown out of the window as well. My friend and I rushed to get inside. We just thought she was a crazy one. She was creepy. Between the age of 8 and 10, Betty and Jeff must have had a few more fights. There's nothing that I can remember, but I do remember my mother telling me that Betty confronted my dad. My dad had been outside doing yard work at about 8:30 or 9. It was during the summer, so the sun was still out and the kids were still outside yelling and playing. All of a sudden, Betty marched out of her house straight to my dad. She yelled at him for keeping everyone awake with the sound of a leaf blower, and probably called him profanities as well a few times, like motherfucker. I would understand her anger if it was dark out, but it still confuses me. She had no reason to be that angry with him. She seemed a little crazy, to be honest. One day, when I was 10, I'd returned home from school to the sight of police cars and a bunch of yellow caution tape surrounding Betty and Jeff's house. I ran inside and asked my mother what had happened, but she had no clue. She later found out from my other neighbour that Betty had died from being thrown down the stairs possibly, or something like that. They were trying to figure out if it was self-inflicted or not, or if Jeff had finally lost it with her crazy shit and killed her. But then, a few days later, I was outside by myself drawing with chalk, and as soon as I got outside, I saw Jeff walking over to his glass door. He hadn't been arrested at this point. He was still presumed innocent. I thought nothing of it because why would I worry about it? So I continued on and retrieved my chalk from the garage. I began to draw when I noticed that Jeff was staring straight out of his door, directly at me, and he continued to do so for 15 minutes with this look of pure rage, and I can only describe it as evil. For all of that time, he literally looked like he'd never been so angry with anyone. It's a look I've never seen in anybody before. It's really creepy. Anyway, I eventually got creeped the fuck out and went to tell my dad. By the time he came outside with me, Jeff had left the door. That's when I realised that maybe Jeff was the crazy one. In April 2011, Jeff was convicted of aggravated murder and sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole for 30 years. He gave Betty a fatal dose of antifreeze, and I'm still unsure of whether or not he actually pushed her, drugged and dead body down the stairs just for good measures. To be honest, he probably did. After reading an article on it, Betty claimed that Jeff was very abusive and would not let her do anything without his permission. That would explain her behaviour, but I'm still not completely convinced that she was entirely innocent either. I just hate the fact that there was a killer who was right next to me. Not only that, I will always remember to this day the way he was staring at me. God knows what his intentions were. I'm just thankful that he actually got locked up for it and could never get to me. Number 23. I finished having tea with my friend and started walking home. His mum picked him up, so I was now alone. I walk home alone at night, so I'm used to it. In fact, I usually walk home at like 1 or 2 a.m, where as the time now is only 9 p.m. I'm fine with walking at night, and in fact, I actually like it. So walking home is no big deal for me. Until I get near a local bakery and I realise that there's a fairly large man behind me. He's not like big, but he would wreck me in a fight. I'm not very nervous about him or anything, but I'm uncomfortable. So I pick up my pace a little and get down the hill I'm walking down to a local car shop, and I notice this guy is a lot closer to me than before now. I cut through the car place and hop their chain link fence to get into a local track bed and keep walking. Now, at this point, if this guy was still behind me, it's a big problem. I keep walking and hear some rocks moving behind me fast and footsteps, and I notice he followed me through the fence and stuff. I now know that he is following me, specifically. I'm horrified and begin to run decently fast as I'm okay in a physical sense. I don't look back for a while until I'm on a main road again, and I look back, guess who it is? My follower. I began walking faster and I see a truck on the road ahead. I'm not focused on it, obviously, so I keep walking faster, and as I get closer to the truck, shit, it begins slowing down and the door starts opening. So I started hauling ass as fast as I could. I full sprinted all the way home, which is like 2 or 3 kilometers. I finally managed to get in, nice and safe. I talked to my mum and her boyfriend, and they said I should have called them, but it's hard to call someone when you're running as quick as possible. I fell asleep on the couch, but just as I did, I can hear knocking on my door. 22. I used to live in a very weird area of town, so have a lot of these kind of experience. The first one happened when I was in the 6th grade. It was in late fall and I joined some after school activities at the new school to make friends. Problem was that I had nobody to pick me up afterwards. I was stuck walking, and the road home was a long maze of abandoned houses and boarded windows. One of these times I saw a red car inching behind me, the only car on the otherwise quiet street. This was weird. The driver was an old chubby man with a huge smile. He rolled down his window and said, "You look like you need a ride." I smiled at him and said, "No thanks." He kept following and said, "Don't be shy, come on, slow down." I told him I was fine and kept looking around to see if anybody else was nearby. Nobody was. He responded with something like this: "You still have a long way till you get home. I know where you live." I felt a chill of horror as I realised I was alone. How did this man even know my house or where I was going? I started running a bit, but he kept up. I hated the thought of him being able to always catch up with me because he was in the car. Then I realised that he might not have even been alone in the car. It looked like there was another person in the back as well. Oh shit, there's 2 or 3 people in the back as well. Fuck. I said, "Are you alone?" He said, "Yeah." At this point, I was terrified. I could still hear him saying stuff like, "Stop running, don't be scared." He drove up and parked at the end of the road we're on. My adrenaline kicked in and I ran for my life. I reached the main road and didn't see anybody anymore. But I was terrified he followed me somehow, so I hid in one of the houses and waited for a moment. I finally arrived home and safe. My parents thought I was lying to get out of trouble and told me just to take the bus next time. 21. I was about 11 years old at the time and I was home alone on a school day. I begged my father the night before to let me skip, and my aunt came round for a visit, and I was not in the mood to sit for 8 hours of class, so I pretended that I was sick and my father allowed me to stay at home. My aunt was at work, so I had the house to myself. So I get to spend a school day in my 3-story house all by myself. At 11, I thought I was bossing. It was around 11:30 in the morning when I was suddenly awoken by a commotion downstairs. Me being naive, I thought, hey, my aunt just stopped by during her lunch break, cool. So I turned over and for the next 5 minutes I attempted to fall back to sleep, but the noise continued. So I yawned and rose from my bed to go downstairs to greet her, but I needed to use the bathroom. So that's where I went to, and did so. After I flushed the toilet, I heard what sounded like someone take off downstairs. It was then that it was completely turning into a horror movie cliche. I became the exact person who upon seeing them on television, would curse out and throw popcorn out. I quietly went downstairs to check out what the heck was going on. I think I knew that something was wrong, but being the idiot I was, I still wanted to see where the noise was. I got down to the second floor landing and realised I was alone. I creeped around the corner to look downstairs and saw the back door wide open. I actually froze. Literally, I froze for about 30 seconds. Then it started to click. I could hear noises again. I went from confusion to fear. My heart rate went skyrocketing. Then I took off upstairs. I heard somebody following me too. I locked myself in my bedroom, barricaded myself in, shoving my bed in front of the door. I hid behind the opposite side of the bedroom, practically having a mini panic attack before searching for my phone and calling my dad. Not even 911. I told him and he practically blew up. Call the police. I stayed in that spot until the cops come. I was sitting there waiting and fuck, there's someone coming up the stairs. And this is what they said. I can see you hiding. Come out. I just want to hurt you. Let's play. I absolutely shit one. They were putting what sounded like a knife on the door. It was a horrible sound and then they were laughing. I really felt horrible. I felt like I was about to collapse. Then they just stopped and disappeared. Weird. Then finally the cops come. According to them, the person grabbed my laptop and a few other things before they took off. But they also wanted to show me the other side of the door. There was massive scratch marks, which was obviously made by a knife and someone had tried to break in. Number 20. So, I had to stay around one of my grandma's houses which I didn't often visit. She lived in this really ancient house. I didn't like it. Apparently, when I was younger, I always tell my mum and dad how that I thought the place was haunted and that I always heard noises. I didn't find out till I got a lot older though that my parents knew this was the case. It turns out that with my mum growing up there, she had seen ghosts before. Not only that, some really scary ones, like hearing voices in the night when she was about to sleep and stuff. But when I was younger, they just said it was nothing. Apparently, I used to see a lady watching me. It really scared me. It was just nasty. Anyway, down in the end of the garden, me and my dad had both set up a little campfire. It was really nice, and when the campfire went out, we just couldn't seem to maintain it. We put some little lanterns down. They were really bright. Anyway, my dad had to go to the bathroom, so he went up there. I followed him a little while after because, like I said, I didn't really like being there and I thought it was haunted. Just as I got up there, I walked into the house and my dad said to my mum, "Hey, I can see him down there, look down there now." Just then, my mum and dad walked to where I was at the door and I saw their faces turn completely pale. They just stared there. I turned around and there was a figure right where I was, right by the campfire. Not only that, it was just standing there. All of a sudden, all of the lights went out next to the campfire. My dad told me to get the hell inside. I still have nightmares about that to this day. Just the fact that what the fuck would have happened to me if I'd stayed down there any longer. Number 19. My brother's fiancée Laura worked as a landlord for a small apartment complex downtown where she lived. It was a nice neighborhood, however, the apartment was a bit of a dump. She had dealt with the normal array of tenants: smelly rooms, bedbugs, noisy past hours, usual. However, one day she had a strange encounter with a potential tenant. A lady rang her and asked if a certain room number was free for rent. Laura thought that this was oddly specific, but said that they did not have a vacancy, especially not in that room. The old lady explained that she used to live there and was put in hospital a while back. She left her apartment lease as she thought that she would be in hospital for longer. Laura set up a time for the lady to look at the apartments in the complex and hung up. She then decided to call her manager and discuss the old lady. Hastily, the manager said to decline the visit and to turn her elsewhere. Apparently, she hadn't been paying and her room stunk up the entire floor. So Laura agreed and called her back, cancelling the sighting, saying that all of the rooms were booked up. Fast forward to 2 months later. Laura is showing a few rooms off to some new tenants, when all of a sudden, a rather large man walked out of his room and asked to speak to Laura when she had a chance. He was very calm and just said that he was having issues with his room. Because Laura didn't want to scare them away, she promptly finished the tour and took the man downstairs to talk. The man had said that things in the room were out of place and even appeared missing. Things like peanut butter and jam looked as if somebody had been eating it. She assured him first that it wasn't her and that no one else in the apartment complex had the keys. He then very calmly said, "I know it wasn't you, it was an elderly woman. Do you know who this is?" It was at that moment that she realised that was the old lady she was talking to on the phone earlier. The man then said that twice in the last month he had woken up to a woman sitting in his chair, which was by his bedside, just watching him all night as he slept. When asked why he didn't do anything about this, he said he was too afraid and just kept pretending to sleep till she left. Apparently sometimes she even spoke in Latin in a soft voice, almost like a whisper in his ear when he was asleep. He would wake up and she would be there. He was worried that she might have been practicing some dark arts of such. The reason that he believed this was that apparently, even when he knew she wasn't there, he could still hear the whispering at night sometimes, all in Latin. Number 18. When my husband and I first moved out on our own, we had this neighbour that we would sometimes see outside and we would often talk to. We kind of got close to him. He seemed normal. We even went to the local pool hall and played pool with him. Anyway, one day we are hanging out outside of his house and we're just sitting there talking. Then the cutest little black kitten walks up in the yard. My husband and I are both animal lovers, so I'm all about this kitten. My husband and the neighbour walks around the other side of the house and are gone for about a minute or so. Then my husband returns. His face is completely pale. The look of his face was of horror and fury. He looks at me and says, "He killed the cat." I get up and walk around there, and my husband is holding this kitten. The neighbour had threw this huge rock at its head trying to kill it. At this point the kitten is still breathing. It had knocked him out. Long story short, we took this kitten to the vet and he had to have an eye removed. We now have the kitten in our possession and we've had it for about 10 years now. We later found out that this neighbour had been out of town for some work and was rooming with a co-worker. He later went on to stab his roommate to death and returned back to his home here right next to us. It's scary to believe that someone like this literally lived right beside us and God knows what he'd been thinking about doing to us. I'm just happy that we didn't have to see him again after this. It's just nasty to think that every night that we slept, there was a killer literally next to us. Number 17. I was 11 and on my way back from a friend's. It was around 9 p.m. It was also winter, so it was really dark outside, and I'm walking next to a synagogue that was 500 meters from anything else, and little easily scared me is frantically looking in every direction, scared that something might be stalking me or about to jump up at me. Suddenly, I hear a car door opening and a voice shouting, "Hey, kid, come here for a moment." I manage to pick up that he's a foreigner because of his accent, which makes it a little more scary, so I'm scared shitless. Try to walk it out and act like I didn't hear anything. Then he shouts out again, "Hey, little kiddo, I just need some help with my car, trust me." Now, I'm scared and don't want to answer him. I don't know what to do. He's an older guy, he could easily outrun me. Should I shout? No. I don't even know what his intentions are, and don't want to alarm him. That might make him do something. Now, I'm looking at this guy from over my shoulder. He's walking towards me. "Oh no, please no," I shout. "I just want to go home, my parents are waiting for me." He edges closer to me, about 10 meters away. Then he says, "Oh no, just let me give you a lift home. Jump in my car." I said no thanks, I'm literally 2 minutes from here. Then he lifts his arm and puts it on my shoulder. I hold my tears back. I try to walk back. He catches my shoulder and smiles. Suddenly I hear a voice calling, "Hey Ron, come here." This is my uncle. I feel relieved. The guy starts running to his car, starts it and speeds the fuck off. I burst into tears when my uncle comes running. I tell him what happened. He takes me home while the cops are on the phone. They didn't find him. Considering the fact that the only information they had about his car was what I could tell them, that's not a surprise. So, that guy, he was trying to capture me when I was 11 years old. He may even still be out there. He's probably not even got caught yet. Number 16. I was home alone on a Tuesday afternoon in January. I was bored and hungry, so I left to grab a sandwich. The shop was about a 5-minute drive away. It took me 10 minutes to order and get my food, and then another 5 minutes to drive home. I was gone for such a short period of time that I didn't even bother to turn the TV off. When I unlocked the front door, I immediately noticed that my dog was outside and that our sliding glass door was ajar, and I instinctively went to let her in, but then it hit me that I hadn't put her outside, and I definitely hadn't left the sliding door open. In another wave, I realised I was home alone. I would like to say that I was brilliant and got out of the house while calling the police, but instead, I grabbed the largest knife I could find and called my best friend, who was at school and couldn't have done anything anyway. I peeked under the beds and in the closets, no one, and to the naked eye, nothing looked out of place. From then, I called my dad and told him I thought somebody had broken in. When he got there, we checked every inch of the house. Only 2 things were missing: a valuable rugby ring that belonged to my great-grandmother, and my senior portrait that hung in the hallway. The police were called and a report was filed. I think the cop half-heartedly went through doing the prints. He took us down to look at a pawn shops for the ring and left. That was it. I slept fitfully for a week or more, panicking over this person who had a massive photo of me in their possession. Winter and spring came and went. Before I knew it, it was already July. I started volunteering at a swim camp for kids, and had put the weird break-in behind me almost completely. On the 5th of August, I remember because it was a birthday of one of my friends, one of the youngest campers ran up to me and told me that There was a stranger standing by the fence, and I asked her to show me where the stranger was and told my boss that I'd be right back. The changing rooms of this pool are set up like little tents because we had so many campers, and right next to the tents was a huge grizzly man. I'm not talking 5'11", this guy was 6'7" or 8. He had a long beard, frizzled hair, and a scary look on his face, and just weird. I could smell him before I even seen him. I assumed immediately that he must have been a homeless man wishing he could go swimming and just wandered by. "Sir, I'm sorry, you can't be here," I started, and he just grinned at me. All of his front teeth were missing, and one from the bottom and two from the top, so it looked like he had a tea in his mouth. "Sir, honestly, you cannot stand here. I can even see a camera you're holding. You've got to get out of here. We're a swimming camp for children. I'm going to have to insist you leave." I stood firm, waiting for him to leave, but he didn't. He just kept smiling. "Do you speak English?" I didn't really know what to do if he wouldn't leave. He wasn't on private property. The swimming centre didn't have security to speak of, and I didn't know how to say, "Hey man, you're as creepy as fuck," without him lunging at me. He licked his lips and smiled at me for maybe another 20 seconds before he whispered, "You're so much prettier than your photo. I can't believe how big you've gotten. You're all grown up now." I ran, and I'm proud to say that I didn't freeze, I didn't scream. I just hauled ass to the other side of the pool, grabbed my cell phone and called the police. I watched him walk back into the woods. By the time they got there, he was long gone. I gave them a statement and described him. I believe they scoped out some of the homeless centres nearby looking for him. Nothing's come of it yet. I'm told that it's still an open investigation. Since this, I've been on a constant alert. I've begun looking for a new apartment in a different city, and I carry pepper spray on me now at all times. It just haunts me that he's still out there, and what you said, you look better in person than you do in your photo, and that you said he's seen me grow up. How long has this sick fuck been watching me for? I just hope I never have to meet him again. Number 15. I'm a 25-year-old female who lives in Australia in the outback in a wooden farm type house. I have a husband, but he's normally always away, so it's just me and my son in this house most of the time. We have no neighbours and no mobile phone reception, as well as very little communication with the outside world, with the exception of the television. There was only one window in the house situated above my bed in the bedroom. It was a small old wooden window frame which had no curtains. However, the window was completely jammed, and as much as I tried to close it, there was always about 2 inches of it open near the bottom of the window frame. My husband and I had spent a while trying to oil the hinges and loosen it up all day, but he had to leave and go to work again. I wasn't too concerned because it wasn't a huge issue at the time. Fast forward to a couple of nights later, I am standing in front of the television doing the ironing and watching some programs on TV while my son is asleep in my bed. As I walk up the hallway and enter the laundry to try and grab another load of washing, I pass my bedroom and pop my head in to check up on my son. My heart stops. The window frame above my son's bed is shuffling from side to side. My eyes scan down, and what I see next will never leave my mind again. There were 2 hands squeezing through the gap of my window, trying to lift it open from the jammed frame. I screamed the house down, grabbed my son, the phone, and locked myself in the bathroom and called the police. I'd hate to think what would have happened if I had just walked past normally and not even looked into the bedroom. Number 14. I'm a karaoke DJ. I usually get home between 2 and 3 AM, but tonight I got off around 11 because the bar had a power outage. I live alone in a small apartment type thing behind a house in the middle of a city, but the property I'm on is rather large, so there is a big backyard behind my apartment. As I was coming home tonight, I noticed that my cats weren't waiting for me in the window. They can hear my van pulling in the driveway. They're in the window every night, no exception. I thought this was odd. Then I noticed that my kitchen light was on. I never leave my kitchen light on. At this point I was a little freaked out. That's when I thought I saw a movement in my kitchen. I called 911 and the dispatcher told me to lock my van doors and remain in the vehicle and stay on the line. Officers showed up very quickly, maybe less than 5 minutes. They parked on the street and walked up to my van. They asked me to stay quiet and give them the keys to my house. One officer walked to the back of my apartment and the other used my key to unlock the door. When he opened the door, all was quiet. Then he yelled really loud, telling someone to come out. I heard the police officer that was in the backyard start yelling and the other officer ran out to join him. My neighbours had come outside at this point and I was freaking out. It seemed like a long time, but they walked out with a cuffed woman towards me. It turned out it was a patron that I'd 86'd last week. I had no idea how she found out where I lived. She was hiding in my bedroom closet with a very large knife and a bundle of rope. I didn't know what to think about it. I don't like to think about what would have happened if I'd gone to bed with her waiting for me. I'll be taking a gun with me very soon, but I'm really scared what could have actually happened to me. Number 13. I need to start off by saying that I'm a broadcast college student, female by the way. Anyhow, because of my strange college hours and my even stranger work hours, I'm often on a weird eating schedule. Lunch at like 5 PM and dinner at around 11 PM. Well after my family has went to work. And yes, all the people in my house works at night. So I find myself wandering for 30 plus minutes away from my house in search of decent food. Never been a problem as I live in quite a nice town. I usually end up at Sheetz, where I can get food for vegetarians. If you don't know what this place is, it's a gas station with hot food that you can go to. So this week, I ended up at there for more than one night in a row now. Each night, there was a girl working behind the register that always talked to me longer than I would like to. She was friendly enough, so I was polite and would always talk back. She always brought up the most random things, such as whether or not I made my pants or brought them with all the holes in them, which was fine, but a simple answer wasn't ever good enough. She would continue to talk about them, even when there was nothing really to say. I got a Coke, so naturally she wanted to talk for 10 minutes straight after. Just strange stuff like that she always did. So I assumed she was just really bored on her job, until last night when I got home from there. Yes, I had seen her there, but like I said, she worked there, and she hasn't really done anything to me up until this point. Now, I would love to say that something led up to it, like I was nervous the entire walk home, or I felt like something was wrong, but I actually felt safe the entirety of the journey. I got back to my apartment and ate my food and did some editing on videos I had to do. There are 3 floors to the building. I live on the 3rd, with only one other person across from the hall to me. So I wasn't worried when I heard footsteps coming up the stairs, but it just got weird. I never hear them go in their house, and my cat was now at the door, silent but aggressively trying to sniff under it, and digging in at the carpet as if she wanted to dig under the door to see what was there. This was when I saw the shadows, which appeared to be someone's feet. No knocking though. I told myself I would satisfy my cat's curiosity and my own worries by opening the door to see that nothing was there, and then I could go back to doing what I was doing. I was dead wrong. I opened the door rather blindly because there was no way to see into the hallway, and again, I wasn't expecting anyone. I certainly wasn't expecting someone to throw my door open and force themselves in past me. She ran as fast as possible right into my bedroom and slammed the door behind her. Of course, I noticed it was that employee. who, by the way, looks like your average 20-year-old girl. I grabbed my brother's baseball bat and reluctantly inched towards the door, and also in the direction of the phone to call the police. Then I heard my neighbours and, of course, snapped back into reality. I turned around and ran across the hall, where I managed to shakingly tell them what happened. I stayed in their apartment until the cops came, and it took them 20 minutes to get into my room to get to her, as she had locked and barricaded herself in. What they find, though, chills me to the bone, mostly because I hadn't noticed her carrying anything with her. There were at least 10 candid pictures of me from my days prior, coming into the store, ordering food, going into the bathroom even, etc., all printed on cheap printing paper. What scares me most of all is that some of them were from weeks prior, before she had actually talked to me, / had the register duty. There were also wine bottles, flowers and rope, so do what you like with that information. Part of me wonders if she would have tried to come into the room if I hadn't have opened the door first. I still have no idea how she managed to follow me that far without me knowing. Number 12. My story took place in 2002. I was 13 years old. I've grown up with two very strict Asian parents, and I remembered rejoicing one week because for the first time in my life they had allowed me to go to a classmate's house. Sure, it was for a group project that needed to be finished over the weekend, but it was still a huge deal for me. There were 4 of us working on that project that day, all girls. We succeeded in working through most of our project for the first half of the day, but we got really hungry by noontime. We'd just eaten the food at my classmate's house, but of course, we were 13, feeling like we're old enough to actually go out and grab a bite like the grown-ups would. So we decided to trek down to the nearest fast food joint, which was about a 20-minute walk away from my friend's house. We spent a good chunk of our time eating and fooling around before realising that it was getting late and we should probably be heading home by now and finish the project before it was too late, and everybody needed to be picked up. This was when, however, that things started to go wrong. About 5 minutes into our walk back home, we hear this white van honk their horn and we see a guy around his late 50s driving and a boy around our age in the passenger seat who yelled out, "Hi cuties." Seeing as we were in an empty street, we knew the comment was directed at us. My friend and I, the naive little girls that we were, decided to wave and giggle like idiots because hey, we were teens and there was a boy around our age that called us cute. We were flattered. We thought nothing of it until we saw the van reach the end of the block, stop, make a U-turn and make its way back towards us, and started to follow us really slowly. At this point we were a bit confused, but we would just ignored them until that the boy decided to hop out of the van and follow us, by thought about 5 or 6 meters away. I remember him introducing himself and introducing the man in the van as his dad. He kept calling us pretty and cute, and it quickly became much more creepier than flattering. At this point we were a bit scared. The boy was relentless. If we were straight up ignoring him, we were not making eye contact or acknowledging his presence, but he just kept asking us for our phone numbers, commenting on our clothes and how we walked and talked. And his dad was driving the van really slowly, following us, laughing and egging his son on, telling him not to give up because we'll give in sooner or later. It didn't take long before one of my more blunt classmates was fed up, asked if we were going to give out our numbers to him. Would he leave us alone? He said yes, so the 4 of us decided to give him our names and phone numbers, all fake of course. After that, we thought everything was done and we were going to go home like normal, but they still kept following us. When the dad and the son told us to get into the van, the 4 of us were full-blown panicking. At this point we were so desperate, thinking of asking for help from any strangers, but the street, it was completely empty, except for 1 or 2 cars that would pass by occasionally. The 4 of us just huddled close together, linking arms with each other. My classmate whispered, "When I say go, just follow me. and run back to my house as fast as you can." We all nodded, and she yelled out, "Go!" The four of us took off running. I remember looking back and seeing the boy getting into the van, giving us a few seconds lead. I remember looking back and yelling at my classmates, "You guys, he's back in the van, he's back in the van, they're still following us." When we were about a block away from our house, my classmate spotted a familiar green car and shouted out, "My uncle, that's my uncle's car." Before the van could catch up to us, we were able to flag down her uncle. Her uncle managed to barely hit the brakes when the four of us quickly copped into the car. A few seconds later, we saw the very same white van overtake my classmate's uncle's car and just sped off. That was the most terrifying day of my life. I would hate to think of what could have happened. How many other people could have been in the back of that van? I'm sure it wasn't just the two of them, right? Number 11. This happened to my father in 1975 in a little country town when he was 7 years old and his sister was 9. I will be typing this as he recounts what happened. So, my father was a truck driver who had to be up at 2 a.m. every morning. That meant that he had a rule in our house that no matter what, you couldn't wake up Daddy when he goes to bed at 7 p.m. My mother worked at an old folks home until 11 p.m. every night. So, for a couple of hours, it was just me and my sister in the house by ourselves. It was our bedtime one night, so me and my sister went to bed. In a couple of minutes, I heard something hitting the side of the house. Then it started hitting my window. It was really weird, so I got up and told my sister to come into my room. We looked out the window and saw a man bouncing one of those toys against the window and catching it. He puts his hand to his mouth and motions for us to be quiet. Then he motioned for us to go outside and play with him. We were frozen in fear. Then he started walking away and we couldn't see him out the window. We ran to the kitchen and there he was, monitoring us from the side door. We knew we couldn't wake up Daddy, so we ran into the living room and hid. The man then walked to our front door and started whispering something we couldn't understand and making these scratching noises. All we could do is cry and remain paralysed. We saw car lights approaching the house. It was my mum returning from work. We watched as the man ran from the porch and hid behind my dad's truck. We watched the man smile and wait till my mother got out of the car. She got out, opened the trunk, got her belongings and approached the porch. I'm embarrassed to say that we were too scared to open the door and warn her. All we could do is watch the man sneakily tiptoe behind her. She opened the front door and shut it behind her. She saw us hiding and, just as she was about to yell at us for being up so late, she saw that our fear-stricken eyes were glued to the glass on the front door. She turned around and saw his face pressed against the glass of the window, jiggling the doorknob trying to get it open. She screamed, put all of her weight against the door, locked the door, called my grandfather who lived the street over. Then the man shouted profanities and how he was going to rape her children in front of her. She called the police and told them as well. Next thing we knew, my grandfather is speeding up the driveway with his gun out the window, just firing it randomly. The cops pull up just as the man took off into the woods. They saw his back, but that was it. They chased him through the woods with dogs and had the whole squad out searching. Other officers inspected the house and saw multiple scratching marks on the door, side of the house. Apparently, he tried multiple times to break in, and he couldn't, so he tried to lure us in to get him inside. They never found out who it was, and that was the last we ever saw of him. We were all pretty traumatized for a while after this, but it didn't bother out my dad one bit. In fact, he didn't even wake up the entire time. I just hate the fact that there was a man who probably would have taken me and my sister into the woods to do God knows what. Number 10. So, a little backstory. I became homeless at 16 and through some help, I found a place between 16 and 25 which gave me a house to stay in until I could afford a more permanent place. I was put in a rough area close to the centre where I could get help and so on. This is the first story of many stories of my roommates at this place. The first one was my first roommate ever. The house was a shared reception of bedrooms which had fireproof doors with locks on. On my room was the larger bedroom and the smaller room, which was where my roommate was going to live. First days of her moving in on our little house thing, the worker comes around and introduces me to Holly. Holly was a large girl who was about 22 to 24 at the time and played the "oh, you're only 16" type of game and that type of role, and said she would look after me to the worker. I smiled and did all I could to look normal, but inside I had the feeling that she wasn't someone I wanted to have around me and that she wasn't going to look after me. She just had a creepy feel to her as she walked over the top, and I could tell that she was hiding something. After the little time and the little introduction, we didn't speak a lot. When I was downstairs, she stayed upstairs, and when I went to my room, she went downstairs. It didn't bother me since Friday and Sunday she was getting wasted, so I had the house to myself. Anyway, one day I sat downstairs watching a bit of TV to make myself feel a little bit better about the situation I was in, and I hear her stomping downstairs. She opens the door and tries to make some small talk. You know, where are you from? Where did you live? And all this crap. After about 10 minutes of her talking about her ex-boyfriends and other shit like that, I don't care much for, she comes out with, "Are you a virgin?" I stare at her for a good 5 seconds and reply, "That's a pretty messed up question to ask a 16-year-old. She laughs and shrugs it off and says, "We're both girls, right?" I get up and reply, "I'm not really into girly chats, do you mind?" She stands out of the way so I can nope it back to my room, and thank the Lord it's Friday. Fast forward to about 1 AM, where I was sat in bed reading a magazine when the front door bangs by. Shit! Shh! Come into the living room. At this point, I'm just thinking, for fuck's sake, there goes my Saturday morning of chilling in my house, when suddenly they are talking hushed and fast. I stay quiet on the bed listening when a man's voice replies to the whisper, "I'm not paying 300. If you don't know that it's a 150, it's a no." His foreign accent sounds pissed to say the least, but Holly become equally irritated. I asked, but she didn't say yes or no, which probably means yes. She's only just turned 16. A second man chimes in with the same accent but a more serious tone. "So, she's 16? I hear Holly stand up. "Yes, now give me 300 or fuck off." As soon as he said 16, I knew he was talking about me. My heart hit the floor and I sat frozen on my bed, praying. I locked my bedroom door. I hear her heavy feet as she walked up the stairs. Every step I felt a cold chill. "Hey, you awake?" she slurred. She did do a pretty good impression of being wrecked, but I stayed silent, hoping she'd go out. "Hello?" And she said my name. Then the handle wobbled, but like a fucking idiot, my door wasn't locked and it came open. I don't think I've ever thrown myself out of bed so fast in my life. I slammed that door hard enough that she fell back into the hall. I thanked them for making my room on the side of the door have a twist lock, and laid myself flat against the door. She played it off. "Oh shit, sorry, didn't mean to scare you, was just checking up on you." Now, I got the better of myself and got overconfident. I said, "Go away and take whoever you're with away too." By this point, I realised shit was going down. She started banging her fist on the door, screaming, shouted to open up. She started almost begging when the two guys charged up the stairs. The second man took on the most soothing tone that he could. "Hey," my name, "right? We just want to talk about something that Holly is really upset about. We need your help. Fuck off or I'm calling the police," is all I could muster back. "With what phone?" Holly laughed, scoffing, and the guys let out a quick laugh too. One of them leant against the door on the other side and, without wavering, started, "If you open the door, it will be better than if you don't, and we'll have to kick it down." I didn't have a witty comeback or even the strength to say no. I was 16, and if they got in, I didn't have a chance. Both the guys set off in what I guess is their native language. A minute passed of this, and I was caught off guard by blow after blow on my door. I backed away. My door makes a noise which says it can't take two guys kicking it. I scan around the room frantically. My brain starts a matter of shit, fucking hell. As I dash to the other side of the room, looking for my window keys, I grab them from my jeans, fumble over to the window, and scream like I never had before. They stopped banging and realised it wasn't worth jail time, I guess, and me screaming like that would have had everyone opening their front doors to see what all the noise was. I heard the stampede down the stairs and to the back door swing open and slam shut. I stopped screaming and slid down the wall into a little ball. I had no idea how long I was sat like there, thinking, what if they were not going to stop? And I had to wait there till the fucking sun came up. I ran downstairs, chained and bolted the back door and the front door. They hid away for a week. Holly and the two men never came back. She didn't leave anything behind except clothes, and I didn't tell them that what happened until the next day, until they come round to check on the house and saw the state of my door. By then it had been a month, and now I'm older. I wonder what the fuck they have been doing since. Long story short, the only reason my new roommate wanted to know so much about me, was being so friendly, was so she could try and sell me to sex for two blokes. Number 9. This happened when I was 21 years old. There was a series of break-ins in my area at this time, and some of my neighbours were robbed at knife point. There were also a few rapes during those break-ins. At the time of this incident, no one had been caught for those crimes yet, so everyone was on high alert. I was actually scared to death to be alone in my house because I'd been attacked in other incidents before and I was still traumatised. Unfortunately, I was home alone on this particular night. Something woke me up at about 1 AM. I laid in my bed, awake, alert, listening. I didn't hear anything else, so I laughed at myself and assured myself that I must have been dreaming. I went down to the kitchen to grab a cold drink. My kitchen windows have no blinds, and therefore anybody can see from my backyard straight into me. I have a back door light that I always keep on at night. As I closed my refrigerator door, I could see the reflection of a man peering into my house. He probably climbed over my back wall. I could see him holding something shiny in his hand. I was really scared at this point and unsure of what to do. Do I run into the living room and call the police? Do I start screaming? Do I try and run out the front door? 100 different options ran through my mind in a matter of seconds. Then I opened my refrigerator door again, put my cold drink back in and took myself out a watermelon that was in there. I grabbed my knife from the drawer next to me. I placed the watermelon on the kitchen counter. Then, the most maniacal and sick grin that I could muster, I started stabbing the watermelon, opening in half. The watermelon juice went everywhere. I laughed hysterically and stabbed it, mainly because I was really scared and truly hysterical at this point. With my clothes and hands dripping with watermelon juice, I turned towards the window and raised my knife above my shoulders. He was still there. I looked him in the eye and tried to smile, but I probably only came to a sneer. I opened my eyes wide, then let out a loud laugh. I walked towards him, grabbed my kitchen knife tightly in my hands. He ran, screaming like a maniac into the night. His screams woke my neighbours, who shouted for us to be quiet. I never called the police, mainly because I wasn't sure what to tell them. I didn't want to admit that I would have had tried my best to stab the man had he have not ran away. I slept with my knife that night and cleared up the watermelon mess in the morning. Number 8. When I was a teenager, I was a goth. I had black hair, Black clothes, black makeup, even a pair of combat boots. My friends and I, in typical goth fashion, hung out at the local cemetery. We started going there as a joke, but soon discovered that we liked the place. We found it relaxed and liked to hang out there. That, however, all changed one night. My friends called to see if I wanted to hang out, which I did. None of our other friends were available. They were either working or recovering from partying the night before. We were on our own now. My friend picked me up and we drove up to the cemetery where we were hanging out. So we hung out there, smoked some cigarettes and started bullshitting about the latest issue she was having with her boyfriend when we noticed at the top of the hill that we were on, about 100 feet away, a bonfire had just been lit. You have to understand that this cemetery is about a block off the campus of a major university, and it's not uncommon for college students to go there to party. My friends and I sighed, knowing that we'd have to get going soon, and it was illegal to be in the cemetery after dark. And we knew the police would show up because some jerks had decided they needed a bonfire. We decided to finish our cigarettes and take off. Just then, the most horrible stench came wafting from the hill towards our direction, straight from the bonfire. My friend gagged and covered her mouth. I groaned and said, "What the hell?" My friend shook her head, saying, "I don't know what they're doing, let's just leave." We got into the car and one of us suggested, I honestly don't remember who, maybe we should just go up and see what they're doing. My stomach turned and a cold shiver ran through my entire body. My friend must have had the same feeling because at the same time we both said, "No, we should leave." My friend turned the car on, switched on her headlights, put the car in reverse, looked over her shoulder before starting to back up. I was still looking up at the hill and a figure stepped in front of the bonfire. I could only see a silhouette, but I was sure whoever it was watching us. A feeling of terror hit me and I said, "Go, go, go, go!" Getting louder and more panicking with each word. My friend looked back at the hill for a few seconds and just as we did, it started taking steps towards us. She slammed on the gas pedal and got us the fuck out of there, going in reverse down the hill. She rammed the gear shift into drive. We were out. We didn't say anything for a while until she said, "What the hell were they burning?" I don't know. I woke up the next morning and went out to the kitchen. My mum was there drinking coffee and I joined her. We talked about just general stuff and her job and whatever we could, when she suddenly comes out with, "Did you hear what happened last night?" I shrugged my shoulders and said, "No, I'd just gotten up." She tells me that a woman she works with had just been kidnapped from the parking garage. "Oh my god," I say, "did they find her?" "Yes, but too late. Whoever took her had raped her, murdered her. They found her in the morning up in the cemetery. He had tried to dispose of the body in a bonfire." I froze. My brain was fully gone for a minute, the realization slowly creeping up. That's what the smell was. I would hate to think of what would have happened if we had made the decision to investigate and see what was actually up there. Number 7. So, this happened a few months ago, right when I just got married to my husband. I know it wasn't a product of wedding stress since people around me had been just as freaked out as I was. My mother-in-law and I were out of town shopping and we shopped at the local Walmart on our way home. She had gone to looking at air conditioning units, so I went to browse the book section. I'd just found out something that caught my interest when I heard someone say, "Jessica." It was in one of those, "Oh, there you are" tone type of voice, like it was both a pleasure and a relief. Jessica isn't my real name, but I look up anyway, since it was loud, basically right next to me, standing a few feet away, with her shopping cart between me and her. This woman was thin, maybe in her 40s, with long brown hair and clothes nicer than you would normally expect to see to a woman who frequently goes to Walmart. Her shopping cart was empty. She stood there, looking directly at me, with a huge maniac-type grin, and eyes were bright, staring. Because she looked directly at me, and there's no one else in the aisle, I felt obliged to talk to her. I smile because she's smiling and tell her that she's made a mistake. My name's not Jessica. There you are, sweetie. I was so worried about you. The woman continues and wheels up to me with exuberance, making me shrink because I can already smell the crazy. A few people are passing our aisle at this time, and the woman's overly exaggerated tone gets their attention. Someone's head snapped to look at us, but no one stopped. The woman, very warmly, as if I was her daughter, creases my arm. I've been looking for you everywhere. Honey, let's go. Your dad's waiting. I'm a person who is anxious to please other people, so I had already taken the step forward when she gently pressed my back so I wouldn't talk. Then my brain asked, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I did a little scuffle forward. "Jessica, stop playing around, let's go." The woman had never lost her crazy smile the whole time. This time she grabbed my arm like a vice and started pulling. I pulled my arm back, setting in my heels and putting my body into motion. I tell her to leave me the fuck alone or I was gonna find my husband. My husband wasn't there, but she doesn't know that. The woman freezes and her face twitches. "Dirty little bitch." She hisses and wheels off down the aisle. "Ungrateful cow." I hear her shout over her shoulder. Then, when she reaches the end, "Okay, bye Pumpkin, see you for dinner." I wait and watch her turn around the corner and disappear, then go the opposite way. I manage to find my mother-in-law and tell her what happened. She seems a little bit less concerned than I thought she might be, but tries to make light of it. We're in the check-in line. I'm scanning around nervously to see if she's anywhere near me. Shit, I spot her several checkouts down and she spotted me. She's now got a frantic smile on. She's wandering away from her empty shopping cart. She has a hot beverage in one hand, which she drops and spills on the ground. She never stopped looking at it. She just breezed out of the store. One of the employees watched her do this and leave, but never saying anything to her. In fact, the expressions on one of the employees' face made it seem like they were a little afraid as well. I've luckily never seen her since this happened. I'm just happy that there are other people in that store with me, and I still don't know what happened to that crazy woman. Number 6. I'm very close to my cousin. She still comes to visit me and my grandma sometimes, and we just sit around and talk about what's been going on. This one story, however, scares the shit out of me. At the time, she was working at a retirement community. This often involved us staying late at night in order to help the residents get put to bed and bathe them and of such things. On this particular night, she decided to get gas and a snack, so she had a pretty uneventful ride through lots of abandoned streets that were surrounded by farms and land that was for sale. While she was driving, she noticed a truck turn and beginning driving behind her. She thought nothing of it and continued on her way to the gas station. As she noticed the truck tailgating her on the empty road, she sped up and so did the truck. She felt relief as she turned into the gas station parking lot. He pulled up right behind her, boxing her in with the parked car in front of her. He wasn't anywhere near a pump. She said she knew for sure that something was up at this point. She got out and practically sprinted into the gas station. She grabbed a soda and started looking at chips, pretending to be indecisive. She snuck a glance outside and noticed a man getting out of his truck and come into the store as well. He approached her and said, "Hey, there's something wrong with your car." Although she's been driving a 2008 Honda, she knew very well that nothing was wrong with it. She decided to go and say, "What's wrong?" "Oh, what? Something's wrong here. If you come outside with me, I'll let you know so that way I can fix it for you. I've got plenty of tools in my truck." She felt progressively uncomfortable and she nodded, trying to act like she wasn't panicking, looking at the cashier who wasn't paying attention. "Oh, you mean the gas cap?" She made up something on her feet. "Oh yeah, the gas cap. I have the tools to fix it. I can help you." Her heart was racing. "Okay, you get whatever you need and I'll meet you out here when I'm done paying for my stuff." Just as she went to go back, as she turned back, she realised that somebody had snuck into the back seat of her car and was waiting there, hiding. She felt ill. He nodded and just smiled, and he went back outside and began shuffling around in the passenger side of his truck. She went up to the gas station and the attendant, "I need to call the police." Her cell phone was dead and she took the gas station phone, calling the police immediately. She detailed everything and watched as the men looked back at her. She said he went pale in the face and got back into her truck and hauled us the fuck out of there, and whoever else was in the back did the same. She was terrified that he would be waiting for her, and before the police ever got back, the police got there and did a search of the car. The only thing that they found was probably the most terrifying thing. No person, but a large knife and duct tape in the back. Number 5. Let me start off by saying, this is not my tale. Believe whatever you want to, but I know my dad wouldn't make this up. This is a story my dad has retold several times throughout the years. It's as creepy now as it was the first time I heard it. Here it goes. In the early 1970s in Des Plaines, Illinois. Back then, it was not uncommon to hitchhike. My dad and his brother enjoyed doing this. They were both quite adventurous and they were pretty young in their early teens. They had just went fishing and they had made their way to a nearby coffee shop car park in search of a ride to get home. A middle-aged man then stopped to pick them up. There was nothing striking about this guy. He just looked like a typical guy, so they got into the car with him. My dad sat in the passenger seat with my uncle sat in the middle back seat. Everything was fine until the driver reached his arm towards the back of the car, then putting his hand on my uncle's knee. My dad's creepometer sounded right away, and as soon as they came to a stoplight, my dad got out of the car, took his brother by the arm and got the fuck out of there. Fast forward a few years later, it's 1978 and my dad catches a glimpse of a familiar face in the Chicago newspaper. It's a man that picked them up a few years back. The article states that this man was arrested after police found 33 teenage males buried in various parts of his home, including the crawl space. The article states that this man was arrested after police found 33 teenage males buried in various parts of his house, including the crawl space. This sick man would find teenage boys wherever he could, rape, torture and kill. Needless to say, I'm very happy my dad reacted as he did. My uncle and my dad were right at the age to be one of his victims. They could have been raped, murdered. It's scary to think what could have happened. I couldn't have even been here typing today if anything turned out different. So, I thank God that I'm here and thankful for my dad for reacting so well. Number 4. The following story is verified. My mum left my dad when I was 9. I have 3 older sisters. My dad was an abusive alcoholic. He used to beat us all the time, but especially my mum. He would twist hickory sticks together and bake them in the oven before beating us with them. My mum finally got the courage to leave him. We stayed in a shelter for abused women and their children. After my mum saved up enough money for us to move into a mobile home. Our first night in our place was alright, it seemed. There was two of my sisters and I watching the TV. My mum was in the kitchen and my oldest sister was cleaning out the bathtub. Then my dad came through to the door and put his fingers to his mouth saying, "Shh." We were very afraid of him, so we didn't say anything. He went into the kitchen and said, "Carrie." My mum turned around and he showed her a gun. She screamed and ran down the hall towards the back door. He told her if she didn't stop screaming, he would kill the kids too. My two sisters and I ran out the front to the neighbour's house. We told them what was happening and it dawned on us. Our older sister wasn't there. She got there maybe a minute later though, when she heard our dad's voice and she laid low in the bathtub. My dad then shot my mum 5 times, killing her. My oldest sister said he went back up the hall calling her names when she jumped out and ran outside to us. I'm now 38 and he's still in prison. Number 3. This is a story of what happened to my mum before she met my dad. When my mum was in her 20s, she married this guy called Mark. Before they got married, he was fine and there was nothing wrong with him, but a couple of months into the marriage, he began to own her life and started hitting her for the stupidest of things like being around other guys, even though she worked in a nightclub, but generally took every bit of anger out on her. My mum was completely shut in because she didn't dare blink without his approval. She finally managed to leave him when her friend refused to let her go back home. She left all of her stuff. She went to the police, but they could only caution him. She divorced him, but he kept trying to get her over and over until she finally managed to get a restraining order against him. With relief, she thought that everything was okay and moved in with her friend for a while. A couple of weeks passed by and everything was great for her, and she was finally having a social life without fear. So she was really happy. Then, one night, when my mum was going to sleep, she could hear rustling above her. She just ignored it, but it was a regular sound though. She said it sounded like scratching, but somewhat heavier, as though it was a rat. And then, out of nowhere, a huge thud hit right above the room. My mum and her friend ran straight out and called the cops. To their surprise, they found Mark in the attic and said that he'd been there for roughly a week, and he'd been scratching holes down into my mum's room to look at her. He was arrested and charged with a couple of things, but he didn't end up getting any jail time. They also slapped him with another huge restraining order, basically putting him in jail instantly if he came within a certain distance of my mum. I do believe that the restraining order expired a couple of years back. I love my mum and I'm really upset and angry that all this happened to her. Number 2. So, my friends basically went on holiday this one time. There was 5 of us in total. We were on this hotel that was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and it wasn't really a hotel, it was more of a house you could rent. It was pretty nice. Anyway, we'd been heavily drinking the night before. I was downstairs in the kitchen area, and some of my friends were out near the porch, when a hand come through the window. Yeah, funny guys, it went to grab me. I just laughed and I couldn't get it to stop. I got really pissed off because my friends know that I hate it when they touch me. So I got something and I just stabbed them with it. I heard a noise, then a scurrying off. I was really pissed off at this point, so I went to walk outside to confront which one of my friends who actually did this. Just before I did though, I walked outside and I got met with an expression of horror on their face. They said, "Hey, did you see that man? He was sneaking around our house. I think he was trying to break in." Number 1. When I was younger, me and my friends all used to play manhunt. We really enjoyed doing this. The only good place we had to play was in this private land. It was sort of a half forested area. It wasn't really close to where we lived though. It was about a 5-minute walk away, but still pretty close. When we got there, we always had to be careful because of the fact that the owner of the land, he was the owner, so he hated the fact that we were trespassing, and apparently he couldn't stand kids. If he ever saw us, we would have to run out of there. He would always shout at us. It was really scary. I used to call him a monster to my mum, and she said I should never play there, but we always did. Anyway, one day, we were all playing there. Instead of playing the usual manhunt, we played army. We were just messing about. I was pretending to be a sniper, and I was with two of my friends. The other three, the other team, were also hiding. We couldn't find them. We thought this was really strange because of how long we'd been playing there. Normally when we play, we always find them, but anyway, we couldn't see them at all. I was sitting there then, one of my friends shouted out, "Quick, run, it's the owner!" Oh crap, I felt my heart beat so quick. I sprinted the hell out of there. I was being followed. Shit. I don't know where my friends went, but I knew that the owner was chasing me. "Hey, come back here. Look, you have to come back to me now. You're in big trouble otherwise." I was terrified. I was hiding in a little ditch when I heard him approaching. I heard him swearing and saying, "God, I just need to catch another one." At this point, I heard him shout out, "Hey, you!" I knew he'd seen me, so I just bolted the hell out of there and got back home. Just as I got in though, my mum greeted me and said that where had I been? Apparently, the police had been round. I didn't learn until I got a lot older why I was never allowed to play outside again after that. My mum later told me that there was a paedophile who was on the loose in the area, and the owner of that land was out of town that day.